And that stinks because I got my new secret pin on my hat. All right.
All right.
Um,
Let me let
I'll let
you
you talk
know.
about ghosts, but
Let's see. You're live on kind of live on YouTube.
what's up, YouTube?
I think it's weird showing a black screen. It's funky. I don't know if. Huh. Man, today's just not the day for streaming. That's what it is. I think.
Today, turns out, is not the day.
That's all right. Oh, there we popped up. All right. Good. So this Sunday Funday, I'm talking to a ghost. The ghost, Cameron. So how have you been, man, since the Cleveland thing? When I last saw you.
Cleveland was such an absolute blast. It would have been fantastic to talk more, but there are like so many people, so much going on.
Yeah.
I've been just thinking so much about the secret since the meetup. It was, for me, like an astounding experience. I've never met so many searchers. I've met like one searcher before in Milwaukee when I visited there, but it was just phenomenal to see, and the spirits were so high. It was so cool, you know?
Yeah. I just sucked that I couldn't spend as much time with everybody. Like, you guys got to have way more fun than so. Good for you, I guess.
I'm sure you had a lot of fun as well, you know?
Yeah. It was fun. In a different way.
So what's your like biggest takeaway that you think pushed the hunt forward from like the Cleveland meetup, you know? Because John said some stuff, you know?
Yeah. The thing that I feel like searchers kind of have tunnel vision, and they're really just looking for him to say the shit that they want him to say. You know?
I disagree.
You do. Okay. Well, I feel like. Okay. I feel like people don't take in sort of the whole of what he said here and what he said in the past, and consider it as a whole instead of just like they look at what John says as lines from the verse, where you have to analyze every single sentence and they all stand on their own, but they really don't. He's just a dude having a conversation. So for me, the biggest takeaway out of everything he said as a whole from this meetup and the previous interviews was it's a lot simpler than I thought it was. It was a lot more thrown together than I could have ever imagined. Like the book.
Yeah.
They're just like I used to push that you're overthinking things, you're going a little too deep, and then John's like, well, I was driving around and Byron was like, this part's fine, so we buried it here. I was like, Jesus Christ, okay, whatever.
I mean, that also checks out from like the hunts that have been so like you look at Pupilo Park or Pupilo Field, right, in Boston. It's just like on the side of the road. It's out in the middle of nowhere. It's so weird. And when I visited Cleveland for the first time as well, like the garden's just built into this hill, you know? It's so weird. I haven't been to Grant Park yet, but I've been told it's also like a weird spot, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, people are saying that I'm back.
Yeah, so I know exactly what you're talking about. I think it'd be extremely hard for someone like Byron to make a bunch of different things that correspond with 12 different hunts and also correspond to 12 different unique locations. But I think there's more of a like, how do I put it? So I was having a hard time thinking about where to start talking about my theory, but I totally agree with where you're coming from. So to kind of start moving into my kind of ideas is that something the gift giver said was to like take a look at themes that or different things that each have and like write them out. And there are many different themes that all 12 puzzles have. Um,
I don't
and
know. Did the gift giver talk about themes?
it was I think it was the last one. It was I don't know how to put it, but well, I guess I don't have this right at hand, so that can just be if you remember it differently, let me know.
Somebody
Um
keeps. Oh, sound is good now. Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was trying to fix technical shit, and so yeah. Anyway, yeah. What you were saying?
so ever since I've been really looking at the three solved puzzles to really base a lot of my opinions on how other ones might be solved. I mean, you have to, right?
Uh huh.
And something that's always confused me is how come the like immigration group is so important to Cleveland, but it's not as important to like Chicago. It's you have to really look hard to find, okay, how does Ireland go to Grant Park? And okay, you can see Italian section of um Boston. And in my opinion, I think what it is it's that there are 12 immigration groups. There are different types of fair folk, like species or whatnot. There are 12 different birthstones, months, and flowers. But the birthstones are tied to the months and are tied to the flowers, right?
Yeah.
So my thought is that the way Byron made this puzzle is that certain different aspects are really important to specific hunts, and then he ends up with some that are left over. And so those are where they're less significant, So for like cultural gardens, you found the Greek cultural garden. Greek immigration group is really important for that, right? And then maybe something different is important for the Chicago hunt, but not as much the immigration group. And so it's kind of a leftover, and you know maybe he picks something to fit there. And that's kind of how I've imagined sort of all of these. So like fair folk species might not be important to a lot of them, but I always really liked the like Wolfman tie-ins to um what is it? It's the New Orleans hunt, right?
Yeah.
Because it's got like the wolf claw hand, and then that the wolf people are like the fair folk. Anyway, all this is to say that I've always felt um there's been this sort of the numbers of clues in the verses and in the paintings are very different. Some verses are really long with lots of clues, and some of the images are way more detailed than others, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look at the Milwaukee painting, and then you look at Roanoke, and there's just way more going on in Roanoke.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now, so I live the closest to Montreal, and I've always really liked the Montreal painting, and it's beyond a shadow of a doubt shows the leg eater. Here, wait, can I share my screen at this point?
Sure. I'll wait for you to do that before I turn. No, no, no. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make. Look, it's just a bunch of Georges. There we go. Now we'll
Oh
wait
yes, okay, I
with a
see, I
bunch of
see.
Georges.
Okay,
There you go.
ta-da! Here he is. Okay, right. So I've just got some stuff. So I always really liked the Montreal image here, and without a doubt, there's the leg eater, and he's got the fingers pointing, and it looks like he points to a golden square and then leg eater. So the hunt has been speculated for a long time to bring you to the Golden Square Mile, and then to the leg eater right here at the Mount Stephen Club, this green roofed building, right? Um, and the hardest thing for verse 5, lane 222, you'll see an arc of lights. So you see something that's an arc of lights, wind, blah, 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 granite walls. There is, the bank building. It's actually this building right over here that has walls written in granite. It's like
Mm-hmm.
so obvious. And then you go up the road, and I think this building up here is the Citadel. It says Citadel right on it. Those are so good, right? But then it says, beneath the only standing member of a forest to the south, Whitestone closest at 12 paces from the west side, get permission to dig out. So if you're looking at where you're actually traveling here, you're at the place where you see an arc of lights, you see everything else, and then you just travel south to what seems like is described as a single tree, and then you walk like 12 paces from it, but there's like no way around. Like south is this way, you know? And there are trees, but you can't dig in these, and there's really nowhere to go. And every time I visited the city, I always hated verse 5 because it has some good matches, but it doesn't get you anywhere. And there are a lot of coincidence. I'm sure, as you've seen from like the anniversary hunt, people putting their theories, there's a lot of coincidences in different cities that can go towards it, which got me thinking if there was a mix-up. And I think verse 8 actually goes to Montreal. And so I was going to essentially walk through my theory, describe my thoughts on each of these things. Along the way, very open to any kind of discussion on it. And so starting off, any questions or like any discussion we want to have at this point?
Okay, so let me just see if I got this right. The commonly accepted verse is verse 5. It's 18 lines long, right? And from what you just said, there are really good matches for 1, 2, 3, I don't know, 3 or 4 lines, right? So that's
yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Citadel,
like
Granite Walls,
really
and the Leg Eater
can work.
Yeah.
Well, the Leg Eater's in the picture, not the verse. I don't mean to interrupt you.
Well, yeah, but it's right across the street from Granite Walls. Like, that's hard to argue that that's correct when it's, you know, like a visual match, like the Bowman, right across the street from Roosevelt and Congress. You've got we'll say 3 really good matches within, you know, a couple 100 feet of each other. And your reasoning for going with a completely different verse and it is that you, number one, don't like this one, and number one, can't figure out where the rest of it leads you to. So we're like, screw these fucking great things. Let's go to verse 7. So, okay, I mean, I'm with you, but that is my main problem with everybody that wants to switch this. They're always like, I don't know where the hell this goes. Like when we're talking about a forest to the south, there's not one. And so we haven't figured out what that means. So they're like, let's throw it all away and go to verse 7, where legitimately the only thing that works is Drummond Street. And that's only because of the Japanese hens. But it's cool. Or not verse 7, what is it? 8?
Verse 8.
Yeah.
Yep. Verse
so
8.
We're going to a much longer verse now.
We are, yeah.
Yeah. It's like twice as long, but this is cool. Let's go.
Yeah. So just to kind of more clearly describe what you said. So I really wanted to put down some big issues I had with the first one. So first and foremost is that, I mean, it's got like the actual picture, right, is, you know, half the puzzle. It's obviously got the Leg Eater. We gotta have the Leg Eater involved somewhere, right? So is it the start point or the end point? In my theory, it's the start point. But it's always got to be part of the theory. And one of my biggest things with verse 5 is, where do you dig that's nearby? The verse doesn't really take you anywhere that's good to dig.
Well, I mean, it kind of does. It takes you, like, you're talking about verse 5, that it takes you directly to the George Stevens Club, Mount Stevens Club. It takes you right there. And it's interesting that it takes you to a private lot with a bunch of white stones in it in the 80s. And it's interesting that it's legitimately the only verse that tells you need to get permission from somebody to dig it out.
It's like, true.
That's
true.
So to
Right.
say it
Yeah.
takes you nowhere is misleading at best.
Yeah. Maybe a better way to put it is being there in person. I have no idea how Byron would have been able to bury something, but no, I mean,
Well, I
and
mean, it's
again,
obvious he would have gotten permission. If he's asking you to get permission, it's obvious he would have gotten permission.
it's very true. Um, but what if I told you that I've found way better matches for verse 8 and they solve the issue of where can you actually dig there? How's a leg girder involved? And it even introduces something I've really never seen other people mention, which is a tie-in to the actual Dutch immigration group. That's something I always found so bizarre. I thought this hunt was Scottish at first, especially with like McGill being close by, but then I found out it's actually Dutch. Um, and I think the biggest kind of Dutch thing is that Palancar's basically proven at this point that this was designed after Rembrandt, right?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of Rembrandts at the what am I looking for? The Montreal Fine Arts Museum. But let's get into the theory. So yeah, we definitely in this verse, it's probably my favorite verse. It has some really really hard to get around things, but um uh maybe maybe you'll start seeing verse 8 a little different once we get talking about it, and definitely stop me at any point. I could just talk forever about this.
Okay.
So here we go. Image 9. There she blows. We got the golden square mile, we got the leg eater. I don't think anyone would argue that we're gonna start around the leg eater. Okay, and
Okay.
then
Now,
here's the verse.
if
Yep.
we're gonna, okay, no, go ahead, because I'm curious how we're gonna start around the leg eater. So that's great.
Okay. Yeah, actually, so just from my theory, how I think it works is that you see the image, he points to the golden square and then the leg eater. So you're walking around the golden square, you find the leg eater. That's a really small detail to find, right?
Yeah.
But what if Byron tells you where to look for it, which is going into the big first hint? View the 3 stories of Mitchell as you walk the beating of the world. If we look at this verse takes you around places. And up until you get to ascend the 92 steps, you are walking the beating of the world. So you're walking what is known as the beating of the world. Well, what's that mean? We go to the Japanese hints, which I think are really important because they've never been wrong. Um, and it line 1, the 3 stories of Mitchell. Um, but the stories is tricky. Is it 3 stories by novelist Mitchell or Mitchell's 3-story building? At first, I interpreted it as the first, but Mr. Preiss, even though not clearly stating, strongly directed me towards the 3-story building. So I choose that expression from the Japanese translation. And then the beating of the world. So, okay. So Mitchell, 3-story building. I think even in the theory for Milwaukee, people are pretty good with that being a building, right? Line
Yeah.
2, the beating of the world. This is the big one. This is a difficult section, even though every part is difficult. From beating, think beat, and from beat, think drum. Japanese drum is spelled D-R-U-M. From this, you must think of a person's name. Open a relatively large English dictionary and find drum. Search the vicinity to arrive at a person's name. Without tedious effort, there will be no treasures acquired. So it tells you start with DRUM and find a name. And Drummond fits that perfectly. Not only does it fit it, but monde, of course, is world in French. So beating of the world, drum monde, it fits the Japanese hint so well. It fits this street so well, and it's the one that has, of course, our leg eater on it. So if he's telling you to be at the leg eater in this verse, it would make total sense to find such a small detail. Do you know what the beating of the world is known for, the Milwaukee theory?
Yeah, it's Kenwood. Kenwood Ave.
Okay. So do you know what the Milwaukee hunters usually say about the Japanese hint mentioning drum and using a person's name? Well, Kenwood is a person's name, right?
Kenwood can be a person's name, I would assume.
Gotcha.
But
Gotcha.
no, not really.
I don't
don't
know it
know
either.
what. Um, I'm sorry. I'm looking at Drummond Street on
Oh yeah.
in
Yeah, yeah,
Montreal.
no worries, no worries. Here we are on Drummond Street. So let's go into the next part. I've got a document here. So view the three stories of Mitchell as you walk the beating of the world. So if you go down here on this road, you'll see these buildings right here. They're actually right across from the Citadel. And there's this building right here. You can see this really small one. It has 3 stories in it. And in the past, it's so hard to see, but it said Mitchell on it. Oh man, it's actually so hard to see. Do you see that
No, no,
right
no.
down
Yeah,
there?
yeah. No, I've seen it before, but yeah.
Right. So on Drummond Street, you have a Mitchell building with 3 stories. Here's where that building is. Here's where the leg eater is. So as you walk the beating of the world, you're walking up Drummond Street at a distance in time from 3 who lived there. So if we go out onto Drummond Street, so this green building, this is Drummond. Eventually, it leads to this foresty promenade. But before we get there, we start at the leg eater. We actually pass 3 different roads. These roads are named Maisonneuve, Sherbrooke, and Penfield. These are 3 historic figures that lived in Montreal. They have their roads named after them. So at a distance in time, you cross each road at a different point as you walk the Drummond Street. From 3 who lived there. They're named after 3 people who had lived there. And then at a distance in space from woman with harpsichords silently playing. When you're on Sherbrooke Street, you are a block, I guess it's kind of like 2 blocks away, a distance in space from the Montreal Fine Arts Museum, where there. Hey, look, there he is, our boy Rembrandt. I thought this one looked a lot like the painting here. With the like long clothes and the hat and the goofy face. This is actually in the Montreal Fine Arts Museum. But this one is as well. It's called Interior with a Woman Playing a Virginal by Emmanuel de Witt. Emmanuel de Witt was actually a famous Dutch painter, and a virginal is a type of harpsichord. And so, woman with harpsichord silently playing, it's a painting, so it's not actually making sound. I think this definitely makes sense from the clue. Let's see here. And then here's another big one. Step on nature cast in copper. And we'll go back to the Japanese hints here. So step on nature cast in copper. For this section, I was told to imagine a leaf. What does a leaf mean? And in Montreal, the paving companies for the sidewalks would make copper leaves that they would embed in the actual sidewalks, like their little trademark. And there was one that used to be on Drummond Street, and you would be able to step on nature cast in copper. And then here's the cool part: ascend the 92 steps. At the end of here is actually a promenade, and it has stairs.
Where is this promenade?
It's at the very end of Drummond Street. So here we are. And there's Drummond Street down there. So
okay.
Promenade, You go down and there's the leg eaters. So you pass the 3 roads. You get to. By the way, this is actually a bit of a walk.
Yeah, it's almost a mile so far we've gone. It's 0.79 miles.
Pretty far. It is pretty far. I have a video of myself walking the promenade. Now, if I just say it's like, now it has been redone, but it has it's a minute video of me walking stairs and getting close to 92. Do we want to watch it?
I mean, I can just trust you that it's 92.
Okay. I mean, it's been redone. So I don't know how many it used to have, but it's very close to 92. When I walked it, I got 91, but there are also like some platforms in here. I think the old version was just a staircase straight up. But here's the big thing, because the verse says, ascend the 92 steps, and then it says after climbing the grand 200. So it suggests that you ascend 92 steps, then you send 200 steps that are grand. And up here, right after the promenade, is the grand staircase of Mount Royal right here. And this has been renovated like crazy. I have a video of myself walking these steps, and it's like over 400. But in the past, it might have had 200. But this brings you out to the overlook up here. You get off the stair, which is over there, and then you're up here on the overlook. Where we get the next line, past the compass and reach. And the overlook has all these little compass headings, which kind of point in different directions, just like a compass. And there's one on every single sort of round part up here. So it does really give off the look of a compass. And then we get to the other side. So wait. It's past the compass and reach the foot of a culvert. And on the other side, whoops, oh, we got taken out. How do I get back? Huh. I have lost my little guy that lets me
that
put him down sometimes. Places.
It sucks.
Anyway, on the other side, there is this, water channel. You could consider it a culvert. Some might consider the bridge a culvert as well. There are other quote-unquote culverts around. I have no idea what Byron meant by this. But there are things that it could be. Like, this is directly on the other side. You see right along this here. And then below the bridge. And this is where it would be so nice to have my guy. But following this trail brings you over here to where there's a bridge. And then you can be underneath. Oh, yeah, here you can see the bridge. You can go southeast over rock and soil. But the tough part, and this is where it always stops me, is that 100 paces southeast over rock and soil to the first young birch. But once I started under the bridge and walked, there was no young birch. I mean, I did this, 2021, and it's been 40 years since Byron was there. Past 3 staying west, and there's another Japanese hint basically saying that the guy thinks that these are trees. I don't think there's... I mean, there could be argument, but it very much seems like he's saying the first young birch, past 3 birches, staying west. You'll see a letter from the country of Wonderstone's hearth on a proud, tall 5th. And my last sort of... I mean, in my mind, and I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way, is that saying you find somewhere, you walk southeast 100 paces, then you start going west until you find something that fits the description with the letter on it, and then you dig under that, right? In my mind, it's a first young birch, you pass 3 more birches, then you start going west, you find a 5th one with a letter on it, and that's where you dig. And I actually don't have any pictures, but they do write letters on trees up at Mount Royal. They put crosses on them to show which ones are dead for the pruners to cut them down. So the way my theory goes is that the trees that were there in the past that were used for these sort of landmarks are gone at this point. Hasn't stopped me from trying, but that's essentially how my theory here goes.
Yeah, it's pretty common theory for people who like to swap these verses. My immediate thought whenever this comes up in conversation is you legitimately just took the way we solve it for Montreal and made it worse. Like 100% just took every single match from Montreal and made it worse. Like the compass isn't an actual compass, except in Montreal, it's something called the North Point Lighthouse. It points you north. It gives you a compass bearing. Like that's all a compass does, is gives you north, really. And then the rest of the verse asks you, to go south with southeast. You have to know where north is to go southeast, so you at least have the lighthouse. But here you're like, it's an overlook that has these things on it that kind of looks like a compass, but it doesn't look like a compass, and it doesn't reference a compass, and compass don't use those things, and it doesn't point you in any direction whatsoever. We're just calling it a compass because we need a compass here. And in Montreal, you pass the compass and reach the foot of the culvert. There's a culvert. Like, it's by textbook definition what a culvert is. But in Montreal, you're like, this is kind of a culvert when it's not. It's not even a ditch, really. It's just a channel for water. Like, culvert, there's a definition for culvert. A culvert is a thing. And then once you go to the foot of the culvert in Milwaukee, you can walk under the bridge. It's a big ass bridge. There's the only definition for what you're walking under is a bridge. But in Montreal, you're like, this is kind of a bridge, but it's not really. It's just like a pathway. Like, it's not.
There's a bridge right here. Like, it's an actual bridge.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I'll give you his bridge.
So, like, but it tells you, understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. You're still in Milwaukee. You're still on a path. Walk 100 paces below the bridge. And at 100 paces, you dead end. You're done with the path. You're right at the entrance to the park, and you're standing next to a birch tree. And the only problem people have in Milwaukee is, just like you said, just like your problem in Montreal, birch trees die. Birch trees fall over. Nobody knows where the birch trees were. So you could head left, west, which is left if you're in Milwaukee, and start counting birch trees, but you have no idea where they are. And here in Montreal, like, I mean, it's legitimately like every single line that's used from every single line that's used from verse 8 in Montreal is just what people assume it is in Milwaukee, but worse. Except for Drummond. Drummond's pretty good.
That's actually what I wanted to sort of get back to is if and you I mean, I haven't found the cask in Montreal. I mean, there's probably no birch trees, but are the matches or like are the theories in Milwaukee as tight as the ones here? Because
the ones in Montreal aren't tight at all. It's like, okay, just walk down this road. How far are we walking down this road? Who the fuck knows? Just walk down this road, and maybe you're going to see this tiny light post that's about the size of your hand. Maybe you'll see it. Maybe you won't. There's nothing telling you to look for it. Like, if you were using the verse from the commonly accepted Montreal verse, there'd be something to tell you where to look. There'd be granite walls. You got granite walls right across the street. We find one clue, you find the other. If you're using the Milwaukee verse, there's nothing to tell you. You can walk right past it. Maybe you don't start far enough down the road. You don't see it at all. It doesn't matter. You get to this staircase. Are there 92 steps? We don't know. Maybe there were. And then you go to the Grand 200 where there's actually 400 steps, but maybe there were 200 back in the. You see what I'm saying? It's really loose. Yeah. Whereas in Milwaukee, it sucks, but it's pretty tight.
Yeah, let's talk about Milwaukee for a little bit. So, you know what? We should have had someone who really is really tight on the Milwaukee verse 8.
And somebody's asking about the three who lived there. Like, that's legitimately the exact same thing as Milwaukee. Montreal and Milwaukee for that line have nothing. Like, it's the exact same thing. It's the Mitchell building. It's a 3-story building. Like, Montreal's no better than Milwaukee because it's the exact same thing.
Actually, so what I think Montreal really has on Milwaukee here is that the Japanese hints fit so darn well,
for
and they don't in Milwaukee.
Just for one
2
line.
lines.
Okay.
Well, actually, all of them do. Mitchell, 3-story Mitchell building. Beating of the World is a name starting with drum, and that the step on nature cast in copper, a copper leaf on the sidewalk. Those all fit.
Dude,
super
Milwaukee's
well.
got copper leaves on sidewalks too. I mean, it's got the Oak Leaf Trail, and there are people who argue it wasn't called the Oak Leaf Trail, it was called whatever, but you don't know, and it's the same as, like, maybe there's 200 steps, maybe there's 400. Like, you weren't there, but in Milwaukee, once you walk down Kenwood and you get to Milwaukee, to the park, there's this huge ass plaque with an oak leaf in it. And I'm I can't tell you the thing was there in 1982. You have to if you want to go into the park that way. I mean, the only thing you guys got is Drummond. I mean, the 3-story Mitchell, you can't say that that's better in Montreal because it's the exact same clue. I mean, it's the exact same thing in both places.
So let's talk about this for the Milwaukee, because I would really like to know the Milwaukee stuff because I don't know it very well. So you start.
I mean,
where do you start?
To be honest, but
shoot, yeah.
You started the 3 stories of Mitchell. So the last time that I went to Milwaukee, aside from the funeral, I went with John Hardapy and we just walked it, and it all made sense. Like you started we got an Airbnb right next to the Mitchell building, and you just walk down Kenwood past the Mitchell building. You go back, it's like 3 blocks. Yeah, it's 3 blocks because it's past the 3 who live there, and each of the 3 were names of, I believe it was founders of Milwaukee. I'm not real sure. And then you just like head down Lincoln Ave, walk up the steps, count the number of steps, go to the compass, go to the
and they've got like 92.
Yeah, it's 92 steps. Yeah, people argue
have a grand 200 steps.
So in the 92 steps in Milwaukee are the same as the grand 200 because the Milwaukee steps make like a double C's for 200, and it's a grand staircase that makes double C's. So it's the same thing. It's like it depends on where you pause reading that verse of how you interpret it. People who people who use this for Milwaukee say ascend the 92 steps, pause after climbing the grand 200, as if those 2 lines are referencing the same thing. Pass the compass and reach the foot of the culvert. Like it's all just boom, 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 right down. I mean, like it
could be interpreted it that way. I would have to say, I think Montreal wins on that one because you ascend 92 steps, then you ascend another steps that are specifically named the grand staircase.
Yeah, but it's not 200 of them. You know, you're like, you even said it's 400 steps. Maybe it was 200 back
when
in the day.
I walked it in 2021, it was way more than 200, but they've added a lot of stairs.
They're both kind of meh. I mean, well, you can't double the set of steps. Like if I make a staircase, I can't double the amount of steps to it. Like,
it's not so okay. So it's not like a staircase. It's a trail that has stairs on it.
Oh,
and so they added stairs to the trail essentially.
So it's not even.
I can't go back in time.
I gotcha.
Well, it's the grand staircase of Mount Royal. They just extended.
It's just not a staircase at all. That's weird.
Can we go? Let me see if we can go down here. Let me see if I can go on it. It is a staircase. They just made it longer. Oh yeah. Here's what it looks like. So here's part of it. So it is like a whole staircase that you walk up, and I just genuinely do not know what they changed about it.
Gotcha. You don't have any pictures from back then or anything?
No, it has to be 100% an assumption that when Byron was there, the grand staircase had 200, but it is called the grand staircase if it had 200 solid, but I don't know how I could find out how many stairs were in it back in 82.
I mean, you've got a couple of people in the comments agreeing with you, and they're just like, people who use this verse from Milwaukee have to pretend the Japanese hints don't exist, or they can just, acknowledge that they haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, like, I think it's important for people to look at verses for a bunch of things, and I think it's important to talk about clues, so I don't want people to, like, shut off thinking of Milwaukee in this way.
Yeah. It's weird to me that and I'm not saying this is you, but most people who want to switch the Montreal and Milwaukee verses, they don't have a reason. And it's like I was saying before, it was like we're taking all of the matches for Milwaukee and just shifting them over to Montreal and just making them a little worse. And then they get all pissed off that nobody buys into their ideas. And that's the thing. You guys, like, the people who want to shift these verses don't have anything new. They're not bringing anything new to the table. They're just like, it's exactly the same, except a little worse. And we have a Japanese hint that you guys haven't figured out yet, But what you don't have is like outright 100% direct quotes from this verse on a wall directly across the street from the most exact image match we've ever had. That's what you don't have. You know? You ain't got nothing even remotely like that. And really, Montreal's only got one defined image match. And
it does.
The idea of switching these verses makes that image match obsolete. You don't even need it. There's no reason for it to be there. You know? Because even you're like, you walk past it. It's just telling you're on Drummond, but you've already got all this other shit on Drummond, so you don't really even need it.
Yeah, I mean, so I for the longest time
and then here's my other question.
Yes.
If we're, I don't know, never mind. Go ahead.
Okay. No, I was just gonna say I'm totally with you. I've been to the city so much since I learned about the city or the secret, and I've been looking nonstop for verse 5, and it either takes me far away from the leg eater, or it's like you're digging right at the club, and then a bunch of those lines don't matter.
You don't know that they don't matter. Just because you don't understand them doesn't mean they don't matter. Like we've got shit in Chicago we don't understand, and we say they don't matter, but they might. We got shit in Cleveland we don't understand that we say they don't matter, but they might. We got shit in Boston that we say doesn't matter because we don't understand them, but they might. Just because we've got lines doesn't mean that they have to matter, especially towards the end of the verse. Oh my God, that's where all the others are. It doesn't mean that they don't matter, but they might not matter. But it also might mean we just don't understand what the hell they mean.
That's true. Very true. But I never the way that the verse 5 worked in Montreal. So you look at the Bowman, and I think that's a very similar clue to looking at the leg eater. You look at the Bowman, and there are things around the Bowman that definitely fit for Grant Park as well. I think that verse 5 has that very similarly. And then you get to the Chicago line. L sits and left beyond his shoulders, the fair folks treasure holder. Oh, well, there's Lincoln, and behind him is where the treasure's buried. If I'm on Drummond Street, and okay, I see the, clue, it's right there. Okay, I see, the Citadel, which is up the street a block or two, and then I see the, actually, I think it's only one block, and then the walls as well. But beneath the only standing member of a forest to the south, if we're facing south, we're facing this way, and it's just busy city. That's always been something that's confused me. And
if you're facing south, you're facing the club, right?
Yes, you actually are, yeah. But there are trees outside here. I guess this is a modern version of the club. I never liked the idea. And you do bring up, good points. It would make sense to ask permission to dig there. But there are a lot of things that also don't make as much sense for me as the club. Like, why would Byron choose Dutch for this painting and have it end at the Mount Stevens Club?
I don't know, man.
Right.
Oh, man, why would he choose Irish for Chicago and have it end at Grant Park?
I don't know.
I mean, like maybe it just doesn't. Maybe it just doesn't matter as much as people think. Maybe the cultures was only important as a way to tie everything together or to make, maybe it just doesn't matter. Maybe when John Palancar was like, because I think what people skipped over was when this puzzle was first created, John Palancar was driving Byron through these parks. John said Byron could pick whichever park he wanted. It didn't matter. Because they didn't even have the immigration themes like in mind then. They were still working on the tribes. So
yeah, they said the 12 lost tribes of
maybe
Israel,
it's just
which
not
I don't know anything about.
Maybe it's just not as big of a deal as people make it out.
Maybe I think it's Cleveland not as deep as a lot of people bring it up for.
Yeah, maybe Cleveland is Greek because that's the park Byron was like, let's just go over there.
Right. And the thing again that I really like more with verse 8 over verse 5 for Montreal is that all the clues make sense. They're very simple, and they lead you to somewhere that would be easy to dig away from the leg eater. Whereas verse 5, there are some good matches, but you can find good matches in other places as well.
You gonna find
I
good granite
never felt
walls?
a good spot.
Can you honestly
Yes,
tell
I
me?
do.
Can you honestly tell me that you can find something more compelling than granite walls, word for fucking word, directly across the street from the Leg Eater?
And let me see if
verse.
I can zoom in on that granite walls for you here, because it's like right. Oh nope, it's up a
Yeah,
little
it's hard
more.
to see. Like even
Yeah,
Hardippy
there
missed it
there
for
she
years.
blows. There she is. Walls. You see her? There it is.
FB walls,
It's
right?
good. It is. Yep. It's so hard to tell. I took a picture of it before.
I'm pretty sure it's FB walls.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, excuse me. It looks really good, and it is hard to see really good clues. Again, I was so for those who don't know me, I live like an hour 40 minutes from the city, so I visit
Do you
all
live
the
in
time to
Canada?
look at stuff. And
I could never remember. You don't live in Canada though, right? Like you live in the
no,
States?
I live like
You don't have to say
I
where
live
you
like
live.
30 minutes from the border. No.
I don't want to
Yeah.
dox you.
No, I live in America. I live in America, but I live kind of close to the Canadian border.
You live on the worst side, but at least you can visit the
I mean, well,
I can go over there and get free healthcare. It's okay.
it's always a cool place to visit. I mean, no matter what I'm doing, but I'm always thinking about the secret.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, it does look good, but one thing, I mean, if we want to talk about verse, so okay, so to be clear, I do have an alternate theory for Milwaukee for verse 5, but I'm not ready to share it yet.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Um,
that's fine. Like it's hard, man, because you guys are in order to switch these, you can't just have a good theory for one city, right? Because
right.
like the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
accepted the
Like, what the
accepted
hell do you do with
matches,
verse?
yeah, the accepted matches have good theories for two cities. And in order to switch them, that's what you got to have, and that's where it falls apart.
Oh, you're bringing up something I also wanted to talk about, because I saw someone post. I've seen a lot of recent posts if the verses are matched up correctly, and I think there are two different versions of verses. There are those that have like direct, like historic quotes or
Yeah.
relations to cities, and there are some that don't. So verse 5 and 8, in my opinion, just don't. But like verse 1 has the Herman Melville quote, right? For Houston. Verse 2 has the abroad in America quote for New Orleans, right? And so on and so forth. But there are some, I think the only ones are like, I think it's the Montreal, Milwaukee, New York City, and San Francisco that in my mind are much more loosey-goosey about things. I think they have possible tie-ins, but they're definitely not as strong as the like direct quotes. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think here's a question. Like
Yes.
for the longest time, I'm going to throw John under the bus. For the longest time, John Michaels thought that every single one of these verses had literary quotes. And he had this oh my god, this spreadsheet.
I've seen the spreadsheet. I've seen it.
And some of them are just so bad, right? Like you're like, no, this is no way. Do you?
He had some. Oh, sorry. Don't mean to interrupt.
Do you think that like hunters now like to say that like the old members don't like people who think differently because like they think people who think differently are the people who swap the verses around, right? Where in our view, you're not thinking differently at all because you're just using the same shit from one city and the other. Like you're doing absolutely nothing different. You're just in our view, just making something worse. Do where and like in Boston, we had the Walpole quote and we interpret it pretty literally until Boston was found. We figured out it had to be sort of interpreted in a more figurative way.
Which one was that quote? The
the
lit by lamplight?
No. The if it was if New York
Oh,
is
if
north of
Thucydides
is north of Xenophon.
Oh, yeah,
where it
that's
had to
crazy.
be interpreted a little more like I don't know, loosely in order to get you to the north end. Do you feel like maybe some of this is being hindered because people aren't legitimately thinking differently? They're just applying the same logic that's been used for years.
Yeah,
to
I have like
shit.
a couple thoughts. So Byron, I never knew him, but he seemed like a super well-read guy. And he's definitely included some quotes like from Abroad in America, there's no doubt. But he's also included some like historic things, like for Boston, it was, the April 14th, right? Or something like that. Or shoot, let me find it. It's verse what, 3? 18th day, 12th hour, right?
Yeah.
Which is
but it wasn't the 12th hour, it was the 24th hour. You got that wrong.
Oh my goodness. What a scamp. Can't believe it.
Well, no, I mean, like, and another thing that kills me is most of these comments that have been popping up. I don't know if you've been reading them. Most of the comments that have been popping up on the stream, I won't say most, but a lot of them are things that are essentially, I don't think Byron would do that, or if this were my puzzle, I would have done it differently, or I would have used this, or I would have used that. When like none of that shit matters. That none of that's applicable. That line of thinking is not applicable to this puzzle at all.
Yeah,
because it doesn't matter what you think Byron would do, and it doesn't matter what you would do. It's what the puzzle actually does.
Right. So this like Montreal theory that I'm now cool with being public with. I like never told this to anyone. I kept it all to myself for like 4 years, and I wasn't ever gonna share it. But I feel like there are lines of thinking in the community that get people really stuck on certain ideas. I think that's something you're, mentioning. There's old trains of thoughts and new trains of thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just thinking about it, questioning yourself, questioning everything is so important,
Yeah.
I think verse 5 fits pretty well to my new spot. I think it definitely has some really good ties into this spot in Montreal. They could be legit, they could be coincidence. If verse 5 is not for Montreal, then this and the Drummond and the Copper Leaf and the 92-step promenade, everything is also just coincidence. So no matter what, there are some crazy coincidences happening. So to say that somebody's wrong is such a hard thing to do because there's evidence towards what they are theorizing. But I think the most important part is to actually search for your own ideas. I think the biggest thing that stops the hunt from moving forward is people not checking their spots.
Nah. Well, yeah, that's the biggest thing that keeps the hunt from moving forward. I thought you were going in a different direction with that. That's why I disagreed with you. I'm sorry.
What direction do you think I was going in?
Well, like I thought you were gonna say something along the lines of like something about how searchers won't accept new ideas or something. Like I don't know. Never mind.
Gotcha.
But yes, no, you're 100% correct. The one thing that holds this hunt back, or the two things that hold this hunt back, is time and not being able to dig a hole. Because like even in Montreal, right? Like let's assume for a second that verse 5 is correct. And
sure.
So let's assume.
And I'm a pro on verse 5. I memorized the whole thing. I can sing it.
If we're assuming that that verse 5 is correct, Byron made the mistake of burying this cask somewhere on a busy historical street. And we both know that street has changed so damn much. Like most of the buildings that are around weren't even there. There's like the club's got an underground parking and a back parking garage that wasn't there. Like everything just changes. So a lot of the things that we're looking for, like if the clues were as well hidden as granite walls or the leg eater lamp, like small clues that you would legitimately have to be there to see that have no historical significance whatsoever, like it's very possible that shit just got changed. Like what was
It's true.
I'm gonna quote fucking Hardapy, and he's probably gonna hate me because I'm probably gonna get it wrong. But what was his like Windswept Halls was like there was like an open parking garage, and it was where Granite Walls is, right? Like Granite Walls.
Oh yeah,
is
there
on the
used
same
to be
building as the open
like a
garage.
crazy overhanging parking garage thing.
Yeah,
from what I've seen.
But that's gone. Like, had you not known about that, it would have been gone. And like another that those changes go to the club too. Like the club dug up its entire front lawn, and not a little bit, like with cranes and bulldozers, and it's changed ownership so
Nightmare
much.
Stuff.
So if who the hell are you going to get permission from now? You know, I mean, it's I don't know.
It's so tough. I 100% follow where you're coming from, and you know, John Jude Palancar, and he, you know, said this whole thing was just put together, scrapped together in a month. When he said one of the paintings was just like Byron going like, "Oh, we'll use that one. That looks good."
Yeah,
it's like that's funny. So I don't. So he was clearly a passionate writer and someone that wanted to make a good hunt, but to say he was, you know, an experienced treasure hunt maker is not true, right? He made one treasure hunting book.
Made one treasure hunt, yeah.
One treasure hunting book.
And it was 12 hunts, for God's sakes. Most people spend
it's a lot.
Years making one.
Right. So
they're playing ads during stream. Like somebody's complaining that they're playing ads during stream. I didn't even know.
Oh my gosh.
But thank you for supporting this channel.
But you're totally right, because it's what this over at the base of a tall tree, right? Where does it say?
St. Augustine? The base
of a tall tree? Here it is. At the base of a tall tree. So clearly Byron was burying these under trees which eventually die. So
yeah. My favorite line's always been over the tall grass. Like, oh my God.
Over the tall grass.
Grass gets cut.
I know. I always hated what is it? Yeah. This one. Giant pole, giant step to the place the cask is kept. What's that supposed to mean, you know?
Yeah. So but I mean, weird. Like they're so vague until you know, and then it's like, oh my God. Like Feel at Home tripped people up for years, and then it was like, oh, fucking home plate. Okay.
You know what the worst is? When I first got into The Secret, it was 2021, but I was on some like old forum that didn't have Boston's being solved yet, and I didn't know it was solved. I'm like, oh, so excited to find this one so close to me in Boston. And then I learned it was solved, but I saw that Feel at Home, and I was thinking puzzle, and I'm like, maybe there's some like tricks going on, but it's a cool line, you know? But I feel where you're coming from, you know?
So to me, the verse 5 versus verse 8 people seem to split their time. At 25% of the time, they seem to spend working the puzzle, and 75% of the time they spend trying to convince other people that they should switch these verses, which I don't quite understand.
So it's tough. I am of the mindset that I think both verses should be used pretty much with like even credence until something's found, because they both fit really well. As for me, I'm very much for verse 8 to Montreal now. It's not just because of all the, you know, stuff that I've compiled for Montreal. Yeah. I found some stuff for Milwaukee, but that Milwaukee, so the main reason that I don't want to talk about my Milwaukee theories, because I'm still like actively searching it. I don't like to talk theories. I'd rather find something and talk about it after, but like, I don't want to come off as like arrogant or anything, you know?
Yeah, no, I get it. So
it's
like,
so tough.
It's a singular puzzle, right? Like this puzzle, it's different for everybody. You're free to work it however you want. So I don't quite understand the pushback on like forcing people to switch to these verse. Like I get it. There's a lot of people who like verse 8 for Montreal, but it's probably like 5% of the searchers.
And to
like
reverse that, I don't think it's helpful to just lock it into verse 5 when nothing's particularly been found for verse 5 either. I think it's important to also look at alternate verses.
But you can't say nothing has been found. Things have been found. In fact, like matches that are just as good as the matches that you presented for verse 8. In fact, I would say probably better. And you're not going to get past granite walls anymore. You're not going to do it. Granite walls is too legitimately, like, it's carved in stone right across the street from the leg eater. Like, you're not getting away from it anymore. You can say, oh, the Japanese hints or they allude pretty strongly to Drummond, and that's true. They do. But the rest of the interpretations
they might not take
for
you
it
away from it. They've definitely taken me away from it, you know?
That's fine. Like, it's a singular puzzle. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, you know? You're free to work on it however you want. I think most of the pushback comes not from like people who are using that, because what I see in the groups is when people post theories for Montreal using verse 8, they get conversation, you know? Conversation happens. People talk about their ideas. They get pushback when they start trying to convince people to switch, you know?
Yeah,
like there's been probably 3 or 4 posts. There's been 3 or 4 posts in the past month. It's been like, George, how do we get you to switch these verses on 12 Treasures?
It feels like people care more about getting their point asserted than actually solving the hunt, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. Anyway.
But, it's such a weird puzzle. I think a lot of the fun comes with the ambiguity and the verses. Like, man, I still wish I was around when this first came out, so it was even more ambiguous, because I feel really cool to be like a pioneer. What was that?
Were you born when this first came out?
I was born in 1997, George.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Like, no,
because like I wasn't even born when this came out.
Yeah. Fair enough.
No, I think I was like...
It's an old book. It's a cool book, though.
8 months old. It is a cool book, yeah.
And I really hope to see some more casks dug out as well, you know? Yeah. It's so interesting. But like, yeah, to like get back to it.
It's I just wanted to make it. There was a comment for like,
yeah, shoot. We can talk about some of the comments.
It was just funny. It said it's not forcing people, but just explain a different point of view. I feel bad for Milwaukee people spending all this time using the bad verse with like a winky face, and just as a reply to that, like no one gives a shit how you feel about it. Like, it's the thing, man. Like, people get so like, my opinion is valid just because it's my opinion, when it's not. That's not the case. Like, that, it's just not. Like, no one cares. It's a puzzle, not life. We're not like regulating banking or whatever. This thing isn't important, and literally no one cares.
I know. Well, yeah, and also any like opinion, if you can't back it up with a cask, it's just...
I don't think that's true. Right? Like, I feel like there are levels to sort of not prove.
No, you're right. There have been certain things that have been discovered that are like big and definite. I can think of like the coordinates by Robert Fox, right?
Yeah, but I mean that's kind of tangible, I guess. But like, I mean, I feel like some things can be more likely than others. I don't know. It's weird. You have to... I don't know how to explain it. I feel like but it's just my opinion, and I could be wrong, you know? But I feel like some things are more likely to be than others.
Yeah, so I think a lot of Byron's clues are not super obscure. I think he just describes things differently than they'd be described. It's like 1 degree of obscurity, and that's it, you know? I think it's super important to look at the solved ones for any theory you're making.
Yeah.
All the 3 solved ones haven't required any of the like back of the book, the the field guide to the fair people.
Yeah.
And they haven't even needed anything in the front part either, right? They've just just been like right.
So I went and started cataloging stuff from the front of the book. I was basically, if you look on 12 Treasures now, the front of the book has a lot of just links to various things. And what I was finding out was the things that I linked, they, number one, absolutely wouldn't really help you find a cast. They would help you narrow down states. They would help you assign immigration groups to states, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's what I read as well. Like they gave you some really interesting Native American groups. One of the groups is one that was featured at the Fountain of Youth Park, and they even mentioned the Fountain of Youth in the back of the book.
Yeah, it is in the front of the book.
And Quebec. Oh, totally. Yeah, totally.
But I mean, yeah, like the front of the book spends a lot of time talking about the founding of Montreal. It talks a lot about the founding of St. Augustine.
Oh, here's something cool.
Yeah.
Founding of Montreal happened in October, and this is the October painting,
That's cool.
Actually,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's not mentioned in the verse, but there is a plaque up here that talks about Montreal being founded in October. I don't know if I can actually see it. It's right here, but
nice.
Anyway,
I gotta get some.
Anyway,
maybe like walking it would change my mind. I don't.
Dude,
I don't know
if you ever go to Montreal, let me know.
All right, I'll do that. We'll just get a whole bunch of Montreal searchers together, and you guys can all yell at each other, and I'll sit back and film it. It'll be fun.
I did see a comment about someone said something in the comments a while ago about you should have someone from Montreal talk about Montreal. It'd be cool.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I had John's from Montreal. He talked about Montreal. There's a whole episode about it. I think there's 2.
Which John?
Hardipy.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I don't think I'm acquainted with him, but...
he's not really on the groups. He doesn't post much anywhere anymore, I don't think.
I feel like Montreal's the least looked into puzzle because it's like so far away from the other ones, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're right.
Actually, that's not even true. It's definitely closer to New York City than
but
San
it's harder.
Francisco is,
it's harder to get to. Like searchers might drive from I don't know, Pennsylvania to New York or whatever to go look, but they're not going to drive from Michigan to Montreal. You know what I'm saying? Like
that's so far. Yeah, that's so far. I know. Yeah,
and then you got to cross the border, and you got to bring a shovel
down to Kentucky. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, getting a shovel across the border is a lot easier than you might think, but it's
I don't know why it is, but it is. I think it is the least worked on puzzle, and it's the one. It's the one with the most out. Like by far, just not really the most out there, but the people who work on it are really passionate that they are correct.
Yes.
And I feel like that's because. You either end up, no matter what verse you use for Montreal, you either end up in one of 2 places. You either end up on Mount Royal or you end up at the club, right?
And I want to make it clear, like I'm not someone who's trying to I'm trying to solve the puzzle, but I'm mainly trying to solve the painting. So I use both verses and try to come to a conclusion, not together, but whichever fits better. In my opinion, it's always been Actually, in my opinion, recently it's been verse 8. It used to be verse 5, but the theories are very different. Anyway.
But I feel like those are the 2 places that you end up. No matter what you're doing in Montreal, you end up somewhere on Mount Royal or you end up at the club. And those are 2 places that you're never going to be able to dig. There's no chance whatsoever. So both sides have relegated themselves to, we're never going to find this thing. So now we're just arguing over whose ideas are better or who's more convincing, Whereas like in Boston or St. Augustine or San Francisco or wherever, you can still dig, you can still prove your ideas. But in Montreal,
Yeah.
you end up in one of two places, neither of which you will ever be able to dig on for any reason. So you might as well just yell at each other.
Right. And to be clear, recently Mount Royal has become a national historic site, which makes it not good to dig.
Yeah, you'll never get permission to dig there. Ever.
And well, this is just a club, you know?
They've given
Mount
people
Stevens
permission.
Club.
They've given people permission,
That's
but
cool.
It seems like nobody cares
it's also
to
been
ask
dug
anymore.
up.
It has been dug up. Yeah, they built they redid the facade and dug down to the footers and put in an underground parking garage.
And even if I would ever have brought a shovel or probe up to Mount Royal, there's no good like living birch trees to find a spot to actually commit to, you know?
Yeah.
So that makes it really hard, you know?
Same as Milwaukee.
And that's what makes it so difficult. Though
the good thing about Milwaukee is you at least know where the birch trees were, you know, and they're not that far. It's not like you have a super long walk. Like they're all kind of clustered together. So if you could dig up, if someone would get out there and actually dig, they might find something.
Yeah, I'm extremely interested to hear like a really clearly expressed Milwaukee like path.
Yeah.
So I could compare it to the one that I've made for Montreal and just see how well the connections are in each spot. Because obviously, as I've shown, there's lots of really good connections to Montreal. You know, either they're ones Byron had in mind or they're mere coincidences. It would be the same thing for Milwaukee. It'd be really fun to compare. So if any of you guys know Milwaukee really well, definitely send me a link to your theory.
I would love to get another Milwaukee person. Like I would love to do more stuff like this on Sunday Fundays than just talk abstracts. Like I would love to get people to just sit down and explain their way of thinking about like how a puzzle works. So if there's anybody from that wants to talk about Milwaukee, feel free. Even if it's switching the verses, I don't care.
Right. Because again, like what I've got going for this theory here is it fits all of the, you know, Japanese hints perfectly. I've got an explanation for every single line. It fits the immigration group tie-in with the fine arts museum with the Dutch connections. We know that it's an art connection from John saying Rembrandt was inspiration for this one. There are a lot of positives for this theory, but it's not like I'm trying to say this is the definite answer. It's just a lot of good connections to get people thinking.
Yeah.
Verse 5 has some really strong connections as well. You do have the I showed off walls. This building right here, I'm pretty sure is the Citadel right there, you know?
Yeah.
And it's right there.
So let me ask your
leg eater is over here.
Let me ask your opinion about this.
Yep.
There's only been one time that John Palancar has ever given anyone a hot, cold answer about a puzzle. Like whether you're hot or you're cold. Only been one time. And it was for James Renner and Josh Gates using, let's be very clear about this, John Michael's ideas for Milwaukee using verse 8 in Milwaukee. And like they used verse 8 to walk. I say it's John's ideas. It was it was the prevalent.
And John again at Cleveland said that the Lions are the face.
Yeah.
That's
so
crazy.
That's another hoop you've got to get through if you want to switch these. Whatever you do, you have to get me back to those Lions towards the end of verse 5.
Right. So I'm, like I said, keeping verse 5 Milwaukee very close to my chest at this point in time. because well, the truth is because I want to dig up a cask, and I don't want to like throw my theory out there before I've had enough time to get permission. Really,
let me ask you this, because I know if once you dig or whatever, if you come back and talk about
I might put up the I can't answer that question.
This is gonna be a sticking point for you, and this will give you time to come up with an answer. Let's say you're using verse 5 in Milwaukee, and you get to the Lions, and you dig somewhere near the Lions. You're gonna have to be digging somewhere in Lake Park or around Lake Park or whatever, right? Who the fuck are you gonna ask for permission, and why?
It's a great question.
It's very explicitly told you in this verse that you have to get permission to dig this out. Who are you going to ask for permission and why? Because if you're standing at the club, I know exactly who you ask and I know exactly why.
It's a very good question.
But in Lake Park, it's just a park. They didn't even have an office. Like who are you going to ask? And why would you ask? It's just a park.
Right. What was it? So first off, that's a question I don't know if I have a real answer for you. Like, well, I'm not gonna give an answer for.
That's fine. I'm just saying, like, once we, because sure. I know, like, I like talking to you, and I think you like this kind of conversation too. So when you're comfortable, you're comfortable talking about it, I would love to have you back to talk about it, and that's gonna be my main sticking point. So I want to give you time to come up with an answer.
So yeah, so for anyone that doesn't know me, I'm very conservation minded. I've dug some very nice holes, and I've made some very nice cover-ups. You know, that sounds way worse than I put it. I've dug some big holes and I've filled them in. I keep really good care of stuff. I think a really tough part about this hunt is the fact that they're all dug underground, and I've always hated that. You do have to really get out. It's hard to dig holes. You hear the Chicago boys talk about digging a bunch of holes. You see, Brian and Andy dig one massive hole, and then they go to the other side. There it is. In Boston, they cheated, let's be honest, to dig that hole up. Well, quote unquote, right? It's going to take some real hole digging to find the rest of these puzzles.
Yeah.
And getting permission is a very tough thing to do for something like this. But
it might not have been back in the day.
Yeah,
right?
Well,
especially if the entire puzzle.
I don't even know if Byron had like permission, because he was in disguises and going out in the middle of the night, right?
But this one probably not. Right? Like whatever verse 5. Yeah. Whatever verse 5 is, he more than likely, I mean, he would have had to have had permission from the property owner. And that leads me to believe you don't even need to know an exact spot here.
See, like I'm almost wondering if he put this here because he got caught for this one. Wouldn't that be funny,
I mean,
I don't know for sure, obviously.
I mean, even if he got caught, it wouldn't matter. Like, who knows what the people who caught him, they don't know what's going to be put in the book. There has to be a reason for that. And the only thing I can see is this puzzle is different. This puzzle leads you somewhere different, where you absolutely have to get permission to dig out. And Mount Royal is no different from Lake Park. It's no different from Grant Park. It's no different from Langone Park.
Mount Royal would be the one without that clause in it.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. They're all the same. Lake Park is the same. So if none of those require you to get permission, why would Lake Park? If you're switching the verses, why would Lake Park require you to get permission? And it wouldn't be obvious at all who you would need to get permission from. But if you're using this for Montreal and you get back to the club, it's very obvious why you would need to get permission. It's very obvious who you would need to get permission from. And that person would sort of have to be in on the hunt.
For sure. Yeah, definitely agreed on that. So
I've always been curious why people didn't find out who the manager of the club was back in 81 and just Ask him.
Just harass him. Not really.
Not really harass him. Like you could just ask. You know,
politely.
It shouldn't be that hard. Yeah.
So
shouldn't be that hard to figure out who managed the place.
Right. So the Milwaukee theory I have, it's one that I only really want to discuss once I've proven myself wrong by digging holes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I do have answers, but yeah, with permission, of course, as stated in the chat. Absolutely. But I'd love to talk about it one day.
Paula Broussard asked, if that's so, why wouldn't you need permission to dig at the Fairmont? Well, I mean, digging in a planter box on a sidewalk's a bit different than walking inside someone's gated fucking
Also,
lawn.
The Fairmont, I don't believe that verse says ask permission to dig.
No, it doesn't. She's just wondering, like, if it's private property, why wouldn't you need permission to Fairmont? But I mean, it's different, right? Like,
true.
You're legitimately, if you're digging anywhere on this club, you're walking into their front lawn. You know, I don't even think you can get there without going up their entrance steps and then going back down, right? Like you legitimately got to go on their front lawn that's gated with a doorman.
I like Rob. Permission could be crossing the border. When I was looking for this was during COVID and it was so hard to get across the border.
Yeah.
Oh man, you needed like a test and you need to have a specific app that you put the like COVID test into. Man, it was crazy. But
I really need to get to Montreal. Like it's the only city I haven't been to yet. I really need
where do you want to visit in Montreal?
What do I want to visit in Montreal? I don't know.
Yeah, there's so much.
I think I'd rather just like meet people and find out what poutine tastes like and shit like that. Like
You've never had poutine? Oh
no, never. Like it sucks so bad because whenever I go to these places, I always try to find whatever the place is famous for and then try it because I figure like it's got to be good, right? So like we went to Chicago and we had deep dish pizza and it sucked. And
man,
every time I went to Milwaukee, I was like, I gotta get cheese curds, and legitimately nowhere has ever had them. Everywhere I've ever went in Milwaukee, it's the only thing I've asked for. And no one's ever had them. I went with Rob and everybody to JM's funeral and we all went to a bar beforehand and that was their big thing was cheese curds. And we're like, sweet, we can get cheese curds here. They were out. I'm like, God damn it.
Oh.
So, but yeah, I've never had poutine.
Everywhere in Montreal has poutine. It's good. Get a poutine, get a beer. You're set. It's so good. And the poutine in Montreal is pretty good. It's an absolutely beautiful city. It's really, really nice at night because all the buildings light up. Here's another thing for verse 5. Because again, before I was verse 8, big into verse 5, you'll see an arc of lights. There's a building that if you're standing on the top of Mount Royal, it's got a beacon up into the sky that's shining in like an arc. It's so nice. That's nice. And the bridge is always lit up very colorfully. It's a crazy skyline, especially from up there. But
I've never been to any part of Canada, but me and Rachel have been talking about going to Montreal, so maybe we'll be able to do it like next year. I don't know.
It's great. They've got fantastic gardens, the botanical gardens. It's kind of over by the where they had the Olympics, I think. The Olympic Stadium's super cool as well. Mount Royal. Some beautiful hiking trails as well. That's where you can really see the overlook of the city. But the city's got so much going on as well inside it, you know? I mean, you can visit, George Stephen Club, see the Leg Eater, go to the Bell Center. I mean, there's so much going on.
That's what we were talking about doing, was like staying at the
Biodome, yep.
No, staying at the Mount Stephen Club because it's a hotel now. Just staying there overnight and then taking in the city, or staying there for a couple of days.
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
The train system's wicked good, you know.
Nice.
Taking subways around and stuff.
Stay at the Marriott. No, if I go to Montreal, I'm going to stay at the Leg Eater. I don't care. It's
Stay
where
at the
I'm going
lake
to
eater.
stay. And then I'm going to go
I like
outside and I'm just going to look at it.
they have like an attendant outside. I always feel so weird just taking a picture with their lamp.
I'm sure they're used to it by now.
They always give me
I
weird
think
looks,
that's what
though.
I would do. I would like go undercover and just go outside to smoke or whatever and wait for somebody to take a picture and then ask the doorman, like, what the fuck are they doing, man? Just to see what he says.
You'd be standing there all day. I swear. That'd be funny though.
Yeah. Oh well. It's
I
been
mean,
fun.
Yeah. You just go up to the door manager and be like, "Hey, I saw my friend was saying to take a picture with the lamp. Do you know why?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
it's
he'd
those
be
stupid
like,
nerds.
"Kisco?"
That's the other thing, man. If I go to Montreal, I don't know French. Like I would
You
have
say,
to. I'd have to have
"Parlez-vous
somebody.
anglais?"
Is that what it is? Parlez-vous anglais?
That's like you speak English.
Excuse me, sir. Do you speak moron? Because I'm a moron.
Oh no, that's how I feel as well. I was walking around, and someone asked me for directions in French, and I had to be like, je parle anglais." It is what it is. French is a tough language to learn.
Yeah.
But Montreal is a fantastic city.
All right. Well, this was fun. Are we done? I don't even know if we're done. Are we done? Or are we want to talk? You want to talk about something else? You got a few minutes.
Yeah, I mean, so
what do you want to rant about? Go on a rant.
There are so many things I could talk forever about The Secret. I mean, first off, are there any holes you want to pick in my theory that you haven't picked yet?
No, I legitimately, man. I like the fact that people try with this verse because I feel like thinking outside of the box is a good thing. I think Boston proved that thinking outside of the box is a good thing, but I think that people aren't really thinking outside of the box with this. They're just switching the verses and making the exact same matches but worse.
In my opinion, this is thinking more inside the box because this is much more in line with the Japanese hints. But
yeah, but only one of them. The rest of them are the same. You know, like the rest of the Japanese hints have the exact same match in Milwaukee. So you are making a better match on one of them. But that's right. Where you're
I don't know Milwaukee, so it's on me for not knowing that theory.
It's where you're hindered, man. In Montreal, no matter which verse you use in Montreal, you're hindered by the leg eater. You have to start and end up somewhere around that thing.
But it's important. Agreed for sure. Like it's that, you know.
And in Milwaukee, you have to start or end somewhere around the lion, you know? Where you really have to end somewhere around the lion. So you're hindered. You're boxed in both of those two places. And you basically got to decide which verse is better for the both of them.
Let's talk about the lion. That killed me. JJP. Maybe we shouldn't talk about the lion because it killed me. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't talk about the lion now.
Well, like it killed some people, but for the older sort of established hunters that had been using that verse for so long, it was like, oh yeah, we expected that. We expected something like that. Like it wasn't a shock to us. It was like, oh yeah, that's true. And same as when Phoenix found granite walls. We're like, oh yeah, we expected something like that. Like eventually something would be found because it just fits the verse. It's exactly where you expect it to be if you're following that verse. Same with the lion. So, that's exactly where you expect it to be. It was just, it didn't blow anybody's mind because it's exactly what we expected.
Yeah, I mean, just very feasible clues. Like, oh yeah, that's a good. That is a good clue. Yeah. And here, let me pull up a good old Milwaukee. It is a lady officially, right?
Yeah, it's a lady.
I just thought it looked more like a man. Yeah. Now I think it looks more like a lion. But yeah, no, I mean, looking at the lion statues, they look so good to it.
Yeah,
but
that was a clue that it was like we already knew it. You know, it's the same with the gift giver stuff. Like the gift giver stuff sort of excites new hunters because they focus on one or two words and extract what they want. But for the older established hunters, it's like, you're not telling us anything new. Like, we already knew all of this.
Here's the part that gets me so confused is that JJP is saying he doesn't know where any are buried aside from Cleveland.
Yeah.
But I mean, clearly he's got to know where Milwaukee's buried, right?
Well,
to know that hot and cold, to know the Lions.
Well, I mean, he would have to know what he painted, right? Like, he would have to know. So
here's my idea of how. Anyway.
Well, I mean, he would have to know what he painted. My way of explaining it to people, and I'm pretty sure this is correct, is that I could bury a cask in my front yard and tell you there's a cask buried in my front yard, and you would have no idea. You'd never be able to find it. And I don't have a very big front yard. It's a lot of space, and it's a little cask. So he doesn't know exactly where these are buried. Like, could he get you to a park? Oh yeah. But could he get you to a cask? No. Because he doesn't know where they're buried in the parks. So he's not lying. He's just not giving you all of the information.
Right. And I think it's like, what he said. It's like he was a painter. He was in a studio. Preiss sent him photos of places around the cask. He included them in his painting, and that was that,
Yeah.
And so there's a lot that's very, I don't want to say obscured, but like the matches maybe aren't as good as possible, right? But then you see things like the leg gear. It's like, that's definitely that, for Milwaukee, this is
it's definitely City
building
Hall.
And City Hall. Yep. And I mean, there are so many other places that are definitely these places. But when we've looked at, what is it? Cleveland, the tall building in the back of the trees, you can't see that from the
Tower.
Gardens.
No, it's a mile and a half away, I think.
Yeah, and in Chicago, the fountain that the ferry represents, and then the what's the other one? It's the building that's the windmill.
The water tower.
Water tower. You can't see either of those as well.
Nope.
So it's like there are clues in it that I don't think Palancar knew were not as close as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's hard to figure out which clues are the more important ones to have more forefront.
Yeah.
Or how do you make a clue stand out more than others? I mean, for Montreal, without a doubt, this is front and center. There's nothing else in the picture, but
the people who are hard pressed on the John doesn't know where they're buried are what they generally use is John telling you, I don't know where they're buried. I've tried to figure them out, and even I can't figure them out. But that doesn't really help you because none of us know where they're buried, but we all know generally, where they're at.
Right.
But they also use that email that John sent me when Boston was found. So I'll tell the story if you don't know it. As soon as Boston was found, I got a photo of a bunch of cask pieces in a plexiglass box, and I emailed John, and I was like, hey, we got word that there's a cask that's being dug up in Boston at Langone Field in a baseball field. It was like, and I'm about to make an announcement, and I don't want to put my reputation on the line if this is wrong. It was legitimately kind of a fishing experiment to figure out what John would reply. Because we didn't know each other very well back then. We hadn't really ever talked. I think that was one of the first 2 or 3 messages that I had ever sent him. Like, we had had dinner before, but nothing. We didn't really talk. We didn't really know each other. And he sent an email back that said, I don't even think there's a cask buried in Boston, which is something I kind of expected he would send to somebody he doesn't really know. Right. So I am, and people latch onto that. Like, John doesn't know where they're buried because he didn't know there was one buried in Boston. Until I immediately, like, I sent him back. I was like, well, here's a picture of it in the ball field. And his response to that was, yeah, that looks like the cask. You should check with Joel. And I knew there was one buried in a ball field, but I wasn't sure which ball field.
Oh.
And then
so is there one buried in a ball field?
Yeah, Boston was buried in a ball field.
Does that mean that there's none other buried on a ball field?
No. It just means that he knew there was one buried in a ball field in Boston. He just didn't know which ball field. I think he said, like, How many ball
fair
fields
enough.
could there be in Boston?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, which is like, it's a clever way of wording that too. Like, he knew there was one buried in a ball field in Boston, but which ball field? There's 3 ball fields in Landgone Park. He doesn't know which one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there are 3 fields, and they're like all out in the blue. You got the Great Molasses Flood, memorial right there, Cops Hill Terrace behind, and it's just the bay. It's a weird location. It's like right on the side of a kind of busy road. It's a weird location. It's all like AstroTurf now.
They're talking about when John said the Fairmont clue. John's not the only one that brought up the Fairmont clue either.
I thought that was the Fairmount clue.
It was the Fairmount clue. They figured out the Fairmount clue, but the Fairmont clue was also given to Josh Cates back when he was filming. But I don't think John did that. I don't think that one came from John. Or he said a letter. A letter was important. That's what it was.
Oh, F, right.
Yeah.
That's
he said
bizarre.
A letter was very important.
I live so far away from San Francisco that I don't look at it too much.
It's that's the city you should go to, dude. I love San Francisco.
I gotta say, when I've looked into it, I really like I could talk about my theory on every one, but I really like the Lincoln Park theories. You got Lincoln Face over here. Yeah. Lincoln Park's the park with the Legion of Honor.
Yeah, good luck with that one. That one you're gonna need permission to dig out.
That one you'll need permission to dig, but it's also got that Chinese immigration group connection since it used to be a graveyard. There's a stone.
Oh yeah.
Door,
Matt dug up a finger there.
I heard that story.
Yeah. But like that was always my question to Matt. I was like, you want to dig at the Legion of Honor? He's like, yeah. I was like, you want to dig in the lawn in front of the most famous statue like ever made? Like, the Thinker just sits there, and you want to dig in front of it and expect nobody's going to stop you. Well, things were different in the 80s. Yeah, but not for the Thinker. Like, you can't dig. Like, whatever. Okay.
Did he figure out the Fairmount clue? I don't know. It's so tough. That's the tough thing about these is that, and there's okay, let's be honest. The treasure hunt guys have given false information about the past. Like what was it? One of Byron's secretaries said there was no cask in Chicago.
Yeah.
Or one of them said, or Byron said there's one in St. Louis.
No, he said you're right about St. Louis, but wrong about the location. What was he right about in St. Louis? Nobody knows.
You were right about St. Louis.
But wrong about the location. Like, what was he right about? You have no idea. Yeah.
That's nuts.
Now, like, Johan, the dude who sent that email, has always been very adamant that he was talking about Forest Park in St. Louis, and there was no one that had any real reason, like on the boards, to doubt him. So that's probably what he was talking about. But that's a very specific answer. You're right about St. Louis. What did he say that he was right about? But if you're wrong about the location, I mean, like, even Johan knows there's no cask in St. Louis now. And especially after John's been like, you guys know the cities already.
Yeah, that's at least good. The cities, but the verses have never been properly paired,
No.
But I think
we'd argue that.
We definitely could argue about it. I think that arguments about it are just throwing information back and forth, seeing which ones are stronger, and in the end, nothing's going to ever be confirmed without finding a cask. I think the ones that are very strong are the ones that do have these clear quotations. So Houston has the Herman Melville quote. New Orleans has the Abroad in America quote, tying it to New Orleans. Boston solved. This one's solved. Right. This what's this one? Charleston. It has the Edwin and Edwina quote, which is also Abroad in America, right?
Yeah.
And then May 1913, which was on the capstan, wasn't it? In
Charleston.
Right, in Charleston, right? You got Right, Stonewall's Door. I haven't found anything. Same with Three Stories of Mitchell. This one, first chapter written in water. In St. Augustine, the first chapter is at the, it does have the Soloy acrostic as well. But not as tied in. I think the ones that really make me think of St. Augustine here, aside from the first chapter written in water being the Fountain of Youth, is the like shell, limestone, silver, salt.
That makes me think less of St. Augustine than anything, because we've got shell, we've got limestone, we got salt, but there ain't no silver anywhere in this town.
Definitely doesn't make me
except for the silver salt cask.
The silver salt cask.
Yeah, which is in the Fountain of Youth.
What?
You don't know about that?
It's silver salt cask?
Yeah, it's the only other thing in the world that is a container and also named a cask. Because cask is French for helmet. It doesn't mean container, in any shape or form, whatever. It's never meant container. And Lula Day, who's the lady that owned the Fountain of Youth before the Frasers, she's digging. Her gardener was digging next to a tree and found this silver salt container. It's a container that they legitimately carried salt over in, and she named it the silver salt cask. And no one.
You know what? I think this is what Daniel was telling me about he's from St. Augustine at the Cleveland Meetup. That's crazy.
There was a question I wanted to answer. I gotta find it. Well, I'll paraphrase it because it's gone from my screen. Because it was Rob Caraggiulio, and he wanted to know about something that I put on 12 Treasures. It was a confirmed clue for Boston spelled in the hair of the thing on the front, like the fly page of. But he wanted to know like who, when, how it was confirmed, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that because there's going to be a large info dump on 12 Treasures, and I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to take a stance of these are confirmed, just trust me, or going through every single fucking one of them and trying to remember exactly when they were confirmed. And like, cause that's been years. It's been years that we've been talking. Like, this is kind of stuff that we've been talking about for years. And we're just like, it's a clue. It's a thing. Believe me. And now finally I came to the realization that like, you just put the shit on 12 Treasures. So I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to go with just trust me, bro, or sit down and remember exactly when each of these. I haven't figured that out yet. So give me some time, but there's going to be more of that. You're probably not going to like all of them. Anyway.
Yeah, but the last two, and I think the last one that ties itself down is Past Two Friends of Octave with the Dauntless and Inconquerable. That's directly on the the wing,
I mean, to your point, man, a lot of these things have words written on signs or in stone, like granite walls.
They do. It's very true. And yep, I've been there. I'm pretty sure I sent you a video of myself walking from granite walls to the leg gear and up into the.
You probably
Citadel.
did. I seem to remember a video like that, but I get so many of them that I tend to like names, who to attribute them to get lost in time.
Yeah. They're all on Drummond. Like, oh yeah, here it is. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, no. They're all there. They look good. But I still have a lot in this verse that, like, lane 222, you'll see an arc of lights. None of this makes any sense. To weight and roots extended together save the site, that doesn't make sense. Yeah. You do see granite walls, but what do you mean of granite walls? Windswept halls, Citadel in the night. There's a building that says Citadel on it. It says it during the day too. A wingless bird ascended, born of ancient dreams of flight. I don't know, and that has its own hint, beneath the only standing member of a forest to the south, Whitestone closest at 12 places from the west side. This entire 6 lines seems to suggest a single tree to the south with a white stone nearby that you walk 12 paces westward of, and nothing like that fits.
Let me ask you this, and I'm going to preface this by saying, don't ever let anybody tell you you're wrong, because they don't know. They're in the same boat that you are in. But having said that, let me ask you this question. You just set out a pattern of words and phrases written in stone. And you have that example in Montreal, pretty verbatim, directly across the street from the leg eater. And then you have a bunch of other lines that you don't understand.
Right.
Which I get. I don't understand them either. But here's my question: if you're looking for a pattern, if there's a pattern set across most of these puzzles, and you have that pattern in Montreal, and it's almost inarguable, like you have to be by the leg eater at some point, and there just happens to be the thing from the pattern that you're looking for across the street. Why throw all of that away just because you don't understand some of the lines, and then use another verse where you don't have that and still don't understand all of the lines?
It's because nothing from verse 5, aside from those situations, fit with the other way the other verses were solved, but verse 8 does. And I'll give you an example. So for Chicago here, we know we're at Grant Park. There are things in the image which can help you get there. The Bowman, for instance, right? I think the Bowman and the leg eater are very similar clues, right? So if you can like identify where these are, we can assume we're kind of starting there. Where M and B are set in stone and a Congress R is known. So the original Chicago boys thought this was where Man and Beast was set in stone and a Congress R is known. We know Roosevelt Hall was on Congress Ave, was it? Then you have L sits in.
Yeah. See,
it was the road, right?
But an interesting thing in Chicago is you have a line from the verse, and then behind it you have something from the painting. So you have where M and B set in stone, and then directly behind you have the Fountain of Great Lakes, which is in the painting. Sort of the same as the Mount Stevens Club, where you have the leg eater, and then directly behind you have granite walls. There's a comment where I think somebody is misinterpreting, saying there are a lot of granite walls in a lot of cities, and that is true. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a granite cornerstone dedicated to FB walls.
Oh wow, that's not where.
Are you now you're inside the building? And he said there aren't any copper leafs in any other cities, but there are in Milwaukee too.
Yeah, I'd absolutely love to see them. I know they're definitely in Montreal, but here, I know it's on 12 Treasures because I just found it. Yeah, no, this is a fantastic photo. There's a bank that has FB walls. It's in red granite right here. You know,
yeah. And
it looks good.
Yeah,
it looks good. Like it's a good clue. You know, again, it's like right here. It's like in somewhere around here. Again, like it's hard to so see deep into. Yeah,
it's hard to see even when you're there. Like you almost have to be looking for it.
You do have to be looking for it, right? But then you get where L sits in left beyond his shoulders, the fair folks treasure holder. We know that's meant to be Lincoln sits, and then beyond him is the quote unquote treasure ground where the whole kind of field is. The end of 10 by 13 is your clue. Fence and fixture central 2. You got the central railroad. You got the 10 by 13 trees. You got the fence and the fixture and the image. For finding jeweled cask, seek the sounds of rumble. You got the train railroad right there. Brush and music hush. Across is the Art Institute. Let's take a look at Cleveland. That's the wrong one. I think it's so important to look back at how the solved ones function.
I agree.
Beneath two countries as the road curves. So the gardens are up on the hill, and beneath it, the road curves below. It used to be Liberty Boulevard. Now it's Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. In a rectangular plot beneath the 10 stone, this is where it's buried. And of course, there's this actual wall in Cleveland, and beneath the 10 stone is where the cask was buried from left to right, although it was actually right to left, wasn't it? There's something background, right? Yeah. Beneath the 9th row from the top, there were 9 rows of a wall, including small bricks. That's legit. 7 steps up you can hop. If you're facing from the front, there's stairs, but it's so weird because you jump up onto the stairs, and then you hop a couple, and then there's a massive jump, that I'm pretty sure none of us could actually clear to get to the actual box. Like it's pretty big.
Brian tried to do that in Cleveland. He was like, nope, can't do that anymore.
It's a tall, I can't do it. It's tall, Then you get Socrates Pindarapelli, right? And it is just same with, M&B set in stone. It's written in actual stone there. So then free speech, couplet birch. From my knowledge, free speech was talking about the philosophers. Couplet was a nearby poem, and birch was a nearby tree. To find Cask's destination, seek the columns for the search. There are columns at the garden. So everything's there. Everything's in the area. When you're standing there, you can find everything clearly.
Let me ask you a question about this, because you were at the meetup, and I consider you like a reasonable person.
Yes,
and you seem to be a very puzzly person.
Can I be right back real quick?
Yeah, dude.
Gotta hit a bathroom.
You're just gonna leave me to talk to myself? I'll just answer questions from the comments.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll be right back.
Yeah. It's Brian's and agrees with you. He does rule. No, he's a good guy. He's going on the cruise. If anybody wants to go on the cruise, next year. God, it's so fucking weird that we have a cruise. Like, the stuff, going back to when the first episode of the podcast, when like we got done and it was posted and 50 people listened to it and John was fucking stoked. That was the first post to the Facebook page. Like, we created a secret podcast Facebook page, and the first one was, we had 50 listeners. And it's like, now we just had a meetup at the Cultural Gardens with John Palancar, and we have a cruise. Jesus Christ. Cruise out of Miami. It's going out of Miami to the Bahamas and then 2 private islands. It's like a 6-day cruise. I think it's a 6-day cruise. Because of you? No, it's because of everybody else that wants to go on a cruise. I did nothing for the cruise. I am just there. I did nothing. That's Natalie. Go Natalie. The podcast has a cruise because of Natalie. I was actually like looking at metal cruises the other day, because you can go on these cruises with all these metal bands and it's just like 24-hour concerts. And I was like, wouldn't it be so cool just to have a cruise for like a band? Oh yeah, I have a cruise. Shit.
Thanks for your patience. I'm back.
You're welcome. So here's my question, and then we're probably gonna have to go shortly. But here's my question, because you're a reasonable person and you were at the meetup. You heard from John. You heard from words come out of his mouth. For the longest time, the hardest thing to do with Cleveland is figure out why you got to count backwards, right?
Yeah.
People have come up with all of these weird, the Socrates Pindarapellis is written backwards on the stone, so that's what makes you write backwards, or the latitude and longitude coordinates are backwards on the statue, so that's why you got to count backwards. And then Andy was like, you got to turn around and count backwards, because that makes sense somehow. And even I was like, no, you have to do what the verse tells you and go back to the columns and count from the columns, because seek the columns for your search. And that'll put you on the right side of the thing. But now, after listening to the way that John and Byron created this puzzle, like John snapping a bunch of pictures and Byron just jotting down some shit in his notebook, the first time he had ever been to this park with zero research whatsoever, I think it's most likely he wrote down how many he counted in his little notebook and didn't write down which direction he counted. And when he got back home to write the verse, he just fucked up. And wrote from right to left when he meant from left to right.
Yeah. It's tough. I've got my own thought on that.
Because there was no preparation put into the Cleveland puzzle whatsoever. Like they left not even knowing where they were going to bury it. They buried it, jotted some shit down, John took some photos, and that was it.
The actual wording of beneath the 10th stone from right to left is ambiguous. Like, from beneath the 10th stone from right to left. Well, are we beneath the stone to the right, or are we beneath the stone to the left, right? Beneath the 10th stone
No,
from right to left, right?
It's legitimately the 10th stone. Like you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it's right in the middle of that 10th stone.
But you count that from the right to the left. But the way it's worded, if you started at the right and counted to the left, that would bring you to the right spot, right? Wait, actually, let me think about it.
No.
It was actually buried on the right?
It was buried on the yes, it was buried on the right.
Right.
So there's no way to read this verse and end up on the correct side of the planner.
So think of it this way: beneath the 10th stone. So Byron buries it beneath the 10th stone. He's standing on the right. He's on the right. So he says the 10th stone from right to left. He counts the right stone he buried under first. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, ending on the left. From right to left, it's buried under the 10th stone.
Maybe, but that doesn't make any sense. Like it's almost, I don't know. I feel like the story of how this came about, Byron just happened to be in Cleveland. They needed a place to bury it. John was like, well, let's go to the cultural gardens. He can pick whatever he wants. Byron had never been there before. They had done zero research and he just picked the park. He was like right there. And then Byron buried it while John took pictures, and then Byron jotted down his fucking notes, and there they went.
It was so cool to hear that story.
Yeah. I find it's more likely he just didn't write down which way he counted. And he forgot when he got back to New York. He was like, I think it was this way, when it wasn't.
I think that's pretty likely. It's it's tough because a lot of hunters nowadays really expect all of these to bring them to a really good X on the ground, but from what has been shown from how these have been solved, it's not that easy.
It's just not that easy. Like I mean, there was lots of
and it's not like you can look any deeper and find the right spot either. It's
when you get down to details like this, there's lots of stuff Byron's gotten wrong over the years, which is weird. Like when he talked to Brian and Andy, and he was like, "Oh yeah, 10 by 13 in Chicago referred to feet." No, it didn't. It referred to something, but it's not feet. Like 10 by 13 doesn't make any sense in any situation in regards to feet. But who knows? I don't know. I think like I really like there's going to be two schools of thought on these puzzles. Like they're super intricate and they're super detailed and whatever. And then there's the school of thought where they're just not. And that whole story from John about how Cleveland came out, that cemented me in these are not intricate at all.
Oh, these are fantastic matches down here. I completely agree. I think a lot of the actual puzzle part of it isn't as well thought through or elaborate as people suspect it to be. Yeah. I think the clues are difficult because it's been so long and because Preiss left a lot of it ambiguous. But
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, I think it's important to like stay grounded in thoughts. And I think it's important to have like healthy discussions, not trying to get tied down into like your own thoughts, but rather discuss your, differing beliefs. And even, like you've mentioned so many things about verse 5 being a better fit. And I don't disagree,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot with both of them. And I think in order to progress the hunt, it's important to pursue both as well, right?
Do you think Graydon made a point last time we did a stream that I don't think people talk about enough, and this in my opinion might be what separates those two groups, the super intricate versus the kind of thrown together trains of thought.
Yeah,
Graydon made the point that nowhere in the past, absolutely nowhere in the past, has Byron ever called this book a puzzle. He has called it a treasure hunt.
A treasure hunt.
And treasure hunts are very different from puzzles. Puzzles have like cryptic things that you have to get. You have to make these connections. You have to figure out, actual pieces of a puzzle, like ciphers or whatever. But a treasure hunt is generally a map and a set of directions.
Yeah.
So are we, is it, could that be one of the biggest mistakes that searchers have? They're approaching this puzzle from a direction that Byron never even intended. So we're reading puzzling things into this thing that's not supposed to be a puzzle.
I don't come from a background of many other like puzzles or puzzle books, but I think you're definitely, I think, you know, what you mentioned is definitely true. We don't see any past in puzzle making from Byron, and his book is a treasure hunt. So he built this to be a treasure hunt, right? It could be considered a puzzle now, but I don't think there's like a deep, elaborate thing going on. But I haven't looked into any of like the Masquerade or any of those books. Or
you should look at the Masquerade, dude. You really should. Yeah, at least watch like a YouTube video on how it was solved. Well, yeah, I think you could solve it. I mean, it was the only example of this that Byron had, right? And it wasn't solved when Byron did this puzzle, so he wouldn't have known the answers,
right?
But he would have been able to look at it for inspiration, yeah. So I don't know. You should look at it. Just at least watch a YouTube video. Shit, I'll make a YouTube video of how Masquerade was solved. Cool. It's not that difficult once you know. It's like, oh, that's dumb.
Yeah, that's what people are going to be saying once Montreal gets solved. Like, oh, that's so dumb. He's pointing at the leg eater and it was buried underneath the leg eater. I can't believe it.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same thing they said with Boston. There's no way it's buried under a ball field. Byron wouldn't have done that. That's stupid. Well, it was. I'm sorry.
Well, turns out.
I mean, they said the same thing about Cleveland too. You can't bury it in the planter box. It says no flower beds. Well, I'm sorry,
but it was.
It was.
Yeah. Oh man. These paintings are so cool though. But yeah.
Yeah. So are we done for the night? We went 15 minutes over. And they probably
I talked about everything I wanted to, and I hope I at least inspired some people to, you know, think about these verses a little differently. For those who don't know verse 8 Montreal, I hope you guys have a, you know, better grasp of that. Hopefully the best verse 8 Montreal I can present. For those who are verse 5 Montreal, I'm just happy you're looking into the Montreal hunt, you know?
Yeah. I personally don't care which verse you use. It doesn't matter to me. It's your.
I want to find a real cask.
This is your experience. You do you, bro. That's the thing that I want to get. I really want to get that out. Like, I want to beat that into people's heads, because so many people seem to be like dead set on convincing me, and you don't need to. Like, I don't, it doesn't matter to me. Like, my opinion is no more valid than anyone else's. So you just do you. For the love of God, put the ads in the pre-show. Man, I don't on YouTube.
Dude, you're getting flamed for the ads.
I don't know how to change. No. I don't control YouTube. I just know, like, you can watch Facebook and Facebook doesn't have any ads, but the quality sucks. Or you can watch YouTube and it has ads and the quality's good. I don't watch my own show, so I don't know when the ads pop up. I'm sorry. And even still, I have ad blockers. And if you don't know how to get ad blockers, you send me a message and I'll teach you. Never see ads on YouTube. Ever. Anyway. All right, cool.
Anyway,
so
yeah,
I'll end the stream.
Thanks you don't for having leave. Me on. It was fantastic to talk. Okay.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you. So bye, everybody.